Welcome everyone to another episode of this generative AI series on webinar, which we've been doing for last several months. Today's topic is a very interesting one. We are taking a leap forward into data analysis, which is becoming a very popular AI-augmented, AI-driven assisted approach. AI is touching several different spaces, obviously copyrights, writings, and several of the person. And that is what we are trying to address as part of this series. So data analysis is something which we're going to touch as part of today's training. And before we get started, I just wanted to share a few resources. Today's webinar is brought to you by bigdatatrunk. Bigdatatrunk is a corporate training services company with over than 16, 17 years now. We have around 470 plus different courses. And we have been fortunate to be partners with Google, Microsoft, and several of the prime vendors, as well as we have been fortunate to serve a lot of corporates, Fortune 500, as well as different prestigious universities and so on and so forth. So we do corporate training and some amount of public training as well. Most of our technology trainings are focused on advanced technology, and there are business skills as well as soft skills as well. For the audience, I think I do also want to share some of the free resources. So these links will be shared. I'll put those links in the chat in a little bit. So these are free resources which our team has curated as a way to give back to the community, especially with the times challenging as right now with the different job opportunities, layoffs, and so on and so forth. So we wanted to share some of these free resources on various entry-level skills or foundational skills. And we want to share those links. Some of those are created by our team, some are curated, but those are great collections on several interesting and useful topics. So that's something which we'll share. We'll share some of the meetup groups. We have several different meetup groups partnered with Google, partnered with Microsoft, and some other independent ones, which provide different kind of meetups and events. So I'll share this link. You can join based on your interest, whether you're looking for particular opportunities in career, you're looking to develop your career in terms of any particular technology stack, and so on and so forth. So we have several of those. We post all our recordings and webinars on this page and on our YouTube link. I'll share this again. So you will have on our YouTube link, you can go to the previous ones. So as I mentioned, we have been doing a series of them, which have been on generative AI, whether it is through responsible AI, whether it is ChatGPT, Essentials, LLMs, whether it is coming up with different models in several areas we have touched, including even LLMs and RAG. So there are interesting webinars which are present on the YouTube channel, which you can refer. I'll share the link to the YouTube channel and you can access some of these past ones which have been done on this series. I also wanted to share some of these other resources. So in case you are looking for e-learning kind of option or kind of want to take this journey forward, we have an e-learning option as well, where I have several dozens of 40 plus different e-learning courses with hands-on and so on and so forth, and bundles, dozen plus bundles for different skills. As a giveaway for this particular today's session, we're going to give a free coupon to the ChatGPT course bundle, which is 5 courses together. So 25 folks can avail that coupon. First 25 folks will share that as later part of this webinar. So you will have that coupon and you can go to this particular bundle on that link, which we'll provide, and you can have access to all of these different courses related to ChatGPT, as well as some hands-on practice as well. So we'll share that. If you wanted to go ahead and take it further, we have all this e-learning option at a very cost-effective price of 7-day trial, which you can take. And if you would like to extend, and it's just $10 per month and $100 for the whole year, you can cancel any point of time if you want to. So we want to make it very simple, straightforward, and easy, and a good collection of courses. And you continue to get all the different courses which are created from there on, not only the existing ones, further as well. The last piece I just wanted to share also, if you're looking at some public trainings, we do mostly corporates, but if public trainings, what you're looking at, we provide that as well. And there is several of those different technology, different soft skills trainings which are listed down. So you can go to that page and refer the latest one, which is coming up, is on LLM models and prompt engineering on April 24th. Again, I'll share all of these links which you can access, and mainly the ChatGPT bundle, which I mentioned. We'll share the coupons for that as well. All these links and the YouTube channel, which we'll share, will be available. So those are a little bit background which you wanted to share, but I want to bring on Aparna, who is going to be our host for today's session. She has been doing this series and spoke on several of these topics, including prompt engineering, LLMs, and everything. So she's taking the journey forward. She is one of the prominent instructors in our team. And today's topic is going to be data analysis, which is a very, very important part in professional as well as technical, as well as other professionals as well, and how AI is changing that landscape. We would like to really take this in the next 45 minutes to an hour to share that. So without further ado, I'm going to stop the share and give it to you, Aparna. Welcome, Aparna.
Thanks, Raj. Thanks a lot. A very good evening, everybody. So let's get started. All right, so welcome to this session on AI-augmented data analysis, where we'll be exploring how generative AI can be used for any of those, various steps that we typically encounter when we are trying to do data analysis, and then get out some sort of useful insights and help with the whole decision-making process as such. Most of you might have noticed, the agenda when you were doing the sign up. Essentially, we're just going to start off with exactly what data analysis means, just spend a little time on that, and then look at the role of various different generative AI tools, whether it be with respect to data cleaning or preparation. What are all the various kinds of analysis that probably we're all still used to, either in a very manual fashion through Excel or through Python, various ways that we do it depending on what sort of data we work with and for what purpose, and ultimately various different kinds of insights. It could be figuring out trends, it could be figuring out or being able to do some sort of forecasting. So how can we do all this in a more easier and automated fashion by making use of generative AI based tools? A majority of the session will happen mostly like in a demo sort of a way, because it's kind of better to see how it's done instead of just kind of talk about it. And I'll also be trying to use a few mostly open source and free accounts of various different generative AI tools. There is definitely a difference in terms of the kind of output you get when you compare the free versions with respect to the paid ones. There are also certain strengths versus certain well-known deficiencies among some of these major tools also, which we are going to discuss towards the very end. We'll also just briefly mention some other tools which do have very little, probably I'd say like a trial variant available, but then majority of them are extremely powerful data analysis tools, but you will need to probably go ahead and take a paid subscription for those. So we'll just briefly mention that too. So talking about the overall data analysis process itself, whether it is part of like a much bigger data analytics problem solving kind of a pipeline, maybe any sort of an organization that is heavily into data science, it usually almost always begins with being able to identify the right sort of business questions that you would want answered, and from then on, actually think of all these various stages that we go through with respect to the data analysis process itself. The data preparation stage, maybe it could be either pulling in data from multiple sources. There could be a lot of data mining involved. Your data could be coming in various different ways. It could be structured data that you pull in from databases, maybe historical data from warehouses, a lot of unstructured data, could be social media data. So it depends almost entirely on what sort of organizations we work with, is this data that we're using for personal versus professional reasons? But then the whole data preparation stage itself takes up quite a lot of time and effort. Obviously, the next important, and also I would say definitely a very time taking and resource intensive stage, would be the whole data pre-processing and the cleaning up stage. Lot of typical issues that we do notice on a very frequent basis. It could be something as simple as missing values or presence of nulls or outliers, to slightly more bigger problems where you might need to go ahead and do a lot more additional work in terms of feature engineering or in terms of creating new sorts of columns. But then yes, definitely the processing stage also takes up quite a lot of time and effort. Our main focus would then be on analyzing this data. It could be either to figure out previously unknown sorts of trends or patterns within the data, being able to do correlation analysis, being able to do some sort of predictive forecasting with respect to maybe upcoming events, various different sorts of analysis. Again, I think all of us have definitely also seen those various levels: descriptive, prescriptive analysis, diagnostic analysis, and all that. Ultimately, be able to package that information in a way that makes sense to the audience, maybe create some really useful reports out of it, probably use some other data visualization softwares like Power BI or Tableau to be able to present those findings in a form that can be used, probably, let's say, by upper management for better strategic decision making as such. We will try and focus, maybe try to build our exercises so that we cover at least a little aspect from pretty much each of these stages as we move through the session. So in terms of even wanting to use all these AI assisted tools to help us out with this data analysis, obviously various ways in which we do get a lot of benefits. The speed at which these tools are able to handle even slightly larger data sets is extremely fast, and the amount of time that we would be spending on a manual fashion versus the speed at which the tools themselves are able to analyze the data sets and come out with extremely quick results is definitely a game changer. So that would probably the first reason where and also this is something that I feel is kind of applicable to, again, majority of the audience. We're not always very confident or comfortable yet with the sort of results that we get back from a lot of these generative AI tools. They have been known to hallucinate. There are a lot of places where even with really simple, let's say, coding kinds of tasks, we do notice minor discrepancies. So I would suggest, instead of using the tools as a complete replacement as such, putting the data in through the tools, looking at those initial levels of analysis, and then compounding that with our own you know expertise, and then combining that output would probably is what give you the best quality results. Error detection, um, especially in terms of figuring out any sorts of mismatch, probably inconsistent formats, being able to help with data cleaning at a much more larger scale, maybe to be able to do it on a manual fashion, whether it is through it could be writing simple formulas through your Excel, or it could be through writing Python scripts. It might take us a little longer to be able to do that, whereas this entire process can be completely automated through the use of Gen AI tools. Being able to handle complexity definitely is something that the tools are better at handling, although it also depends on the kind of prompts that we do put in. The more detailed and the more clearer your prompt, asking for, let us say, exact relationship between variable A and variable B within this time span, from this data set, the way you put out your prompt, obviously there needs to be that complexity that shows up in the prompt too. But yes, the generative AI tools are definitely better at handling the sort of complex patterns and figuring out all these relationships. Again, this point kind of makes it necessary that it's only someone who already has some sort of previous experience with data analysis and is also well aware of exactly what they need to do who can use the tools like really efficiently. A complete beginner with absolutely no idea of what needs to be done, although the tools themselves are extremely powerful, they might find it really difficult to get out that sort of efficient complex usage. So probably that whole debate around can a generative AI tool completely replace us in terms of what we do, I think we can probably park that discussion for a little while. um, Being able to even know what to ask and then being able to make sense of those results definitely still left to human intelligence and our own experience as such. Automation, yes, you can in fact use multiple generative AI tools and then build up an entire pipeline where you try to automate the whole process, which can be done pretty efficiently. And insight generation, um, to a large extent, it does require someone with very good domain understanding or with a lot of background experience in that specific area as such. Right now, even for beginners, again, being able to ask the right kind of question should probably make it easy to at least pull out some sort of basic level insights from the data sets themselves. Also, probably not all tools, but some of them are very good at even generating visualizations almost instantly on the go, which can help you with that insight generation down the line. Okay, so let's get started. um, First, usually within any sort of a data analysis pipeline, it's typically data pre-processing, a lot of the data cleaning part that takes up quite a lot of time and effort. And again, I'm still talking about some of the more common, I'd say, the more simpler typical issues that we typically notice. So I'll be switching from this to probably, I'll be doing the first couple of exercises through ChatGPT. So assume you have a file that does have some sort of inconsistencies within the data itself. Like we said, for now, the issues are pretty straightforward. We do definitely notice a lot of missing values, inconsistency in the way the data itself has been entered. Let us say, something as simple as date, while at certain places it is the date, month, year kind of a format. Some other places it could be the other way around. Sometimes even, you know, let's say we have a field called quantity, and then while we expect numeric kind of data, very likely, someone might put in text kind of data. Presence of outliers is definitely a big issue. And those of us who also work probably, with machine learning or deep learning pipelines, we are aware of how presence of outliers can really skew, the overall learning of the algorithm itself. Also, again, whether or not we treat outliers is kind of like a case by case thing. Certain places we do want to retain the outliers because they do have a lot of impact on exactly what our machine learning algorithm is trying to learn. Certain times we will have to treat it, especially if we are working with, let's say, algorithms like support vector machines, which are very sensitive to the presence of outliers. So again, what probably I'm trying to say is being able to figure out an outlier and being able to fix it is something that a generative AI tool might definitely assist you with. But then even, whether or not you would want to treat it, how you would want to go ahead and fix it. Do you want to replace it with some other known value? Do you want to go with, let's say, the 90th percentile or quartile kind of a range? So those are decisions that still are kind of left up to us. A lot of times data type mismatches that show up within various different columns. And although, these are probably the more simpler ones, there are a lot more other techniques that are typically involved within this first phase itself. Um, could be creating new variables from existing ones, being able to figure out which fields or attributes actually play a lot of importance or role. What probably we are referring to is, the importance or being able to rank the features themselves, and then being able to do correlation analysis among all of these features. So various different techniques that do show up. Let's go ahead and try out a few of those. All right, so I'm going to move to my browser window. Okay, right now, for the purpose of this, let me once again share screen too. I'm using a paid account of ChatGPT. You can in fact try this exercise out with your free versions as well, but like we all know, the number of prompts, especially for advanced data analysis through a free ChatGPT version, would be much more limited. Also, the level of analysis after probably you've exhausted a few prompts is going to be limited on the free one, but definitely it does work with the free version too. Especially again, if you haven't maxed out that day's limit as such. So we can just go ahead and upload our data set. For this particular prompt, I'm going to be using a very simple um, sales data, where we've manually introduced a lot of errors. Okay, and before I even put in the prompt, let's actually just go ahead and look at the data itself. Just give me a minute, please. All right, so this was like a small CSV kind of a format, and I also hope it's kind of visible and not way too small, the data itself. Just even like at a single glance, various different sorts of inconsistencies or problems that do show up within this data. Certain places where we say quantity, it's in numeric format at certain places, and then in text format. There is obvious issues with how the emails have been provided, with the .com kind of missing. There is inconsistency here in terms of the kind of date values that have been put in, and then certain places there are missing values in terms of the quantity itself. Again, certain places product is missing. So for us to be able to go ahead, yeah, we can definitely kind of go through each row and then be able to do it in a manual fashion. We can write out a lot of formulas in Excel, be able to figure out either those missing values or force changes in terms of the data types. So these are all things that we can do on a manual basis as well. But let's go ahead and see if we'll be able to automate this entire data cleaning process itself, through a slightly longer and a very specific prompt as such that helps us do this. So I'm going to go to my ChatGPT screen and then put in, this particular prompt. I do have it on the slides, so interest of time, so that we'll be able to work through multiple samples here. All right. So I've put in my data set here that's already been uploaded, a CSV format. Also, one other point I tried to make, some of the other, almost all of them are comparable. All of them are doing extremely good with respect to the kind of reasoning tasks or generation tasks. But then I've definitely seen Google Gemini not really support CSV files. That's one issue. So if you would want to do something similar through Google Gemini, you would have to have your data set in Excel format. One other thing that I've noticed is even tools like Claude and Grok also do an extremely good job with respect to data analysis. But then once again, the size of the data set itself could be a problem, especially if you're on the free versions. So other than ChatGPT, the remaining ones that I'll be using through the rest of the sessions are all the free tier accounts, not paid ones. So we've said, we have this data set and there are a lot of errors. So first identify the errors themselves. And I have very clean instructions in terms of what sort of cleanup I want, convert the dates into this specific format. If it is possible, fix the emails, if it is like a really simple issue with probably the @ symbol or things like that, where it is very difficult to fix, just kind of replace that with invalid email kind of a thing. Again, where possible, convert the quantities into numbers, standardize all the prices. We had certain missing values, maybe replace them with some other kind of a default value. And once the overall cleaning process itself is done, go ahead and then create a CSV file for me that I should be able to download and then work with. So let's see if it's able to handle this and how long it takes to be able to do that job. Because we are working with the more recent reasoning models, it even shows you the overall thought process itself as to what is happening. So it says, it does have a lot of inconsistent ones, and then it's going ahead and cleaning the data. It does take a little time to analyze. And this is, I wouldn't call it a large data set, but smaller one with probably quite a lot of issues. And then it does show it up in a tabular fashion. And the very end, it has cleaned it up and has also given me a download link to that same format that I've asked, which is a CSV one. And let's just go ahead and open that up. Okay, so this is the cleaned variant of the data set that we had uploaded. Again, let me zoom that up. I hope it is visible. Right, so certain places where there were missing values, it has replaced that with unknown. We do notice that it was not able to convert some data formats into the exact form that we had requested. So this is still like something that is lacking. Some of the quantity values were converted from the text form into the numeric form. Wherever they were malformed, the emails were replaced with this default invalid email kind of tag. So yes, to a certain extent, a few of the more common issues, as long as you put in very detailed prompts, it will be able to go ahead and fix those in a very automated fashion. And then, in fact, fix up a lot of those issues at the very same time with just one single prompt, and give you the cleaned up version of the data itself. Okay. And now, it depends almost entirely on how well we write our prompts and exactly what sort of, data pre-processing or cleanup are we expecting. This second example I have is where I'm trying to work through some sort of raw text data. A lot of us do deal with data that is probably only in textual fashion. And then especially, specific use case that I find this very, very helpful with is where we are going ahead and collecting data through Google Forms, let us say, or through some sort of surveys, where this scope of inaccuracy or the lots of typos creeping in with respect to the data set itself is extremely huge. So once again, you can use these tools to directly put in all of that raw text data and then put in a very detailed kind of a prompt, and then ask for either a simple straight up cleaning to happen, or maybe one more level of analysis to happen on top of that. Again, I'll be opening up the raw data text itself, but then the prompt I have is still again very detailed in nature. And this is something that all of us can benefit from quite a lot. The more specific and more detailed, as detailed as you can get with respect to the prompt, really helps you in being able to manage very complex tasks as well. Now, for example, I've clearly mentioned my raw data contains a lot of misspellings. For example, this one single brand, Samsung, can be misspelled in all of these multiple ways. I'm just showing it some examples of what sort of discrepancies occur. And then, so I wanted to clean it up and then count the frequency of each of those brands. So once again, let's go back to our ChatGPT screen. And before we do that, let's take a look at the raw text data itself. So this is just, data that's been captured in text format with a lot of mistakes, in how the details themselves have been entered by users. Okay, so this small notepad file is what I'm trying to enter. So the previous example, we were working with a CSV file. This is a .txt kind of a file that I'm uploading into ChatGPT right now. Okay. Right. Once again, I'm putting in this exact same detailed prompt here. And asking it for that survey data to be cleaned up and do a very simple frequency count on top of that. Okay. So it's helping us clean and normalize, making up that plan, showing us the whole reasoning or chain of thought as well. And in fact, you can go through the step-by-step plan, and if you feel it's probably not happening according to what you expect or what you require, you can always stop and say, this is not what I need. This step 2, can you change it to something else? And it should be able to once again reframe that question for us and then carry out that next level of analysis. Okay, let's see how long this takes. We'll just give it another minute. Okay, so it says normalized brand frequencies. First, all the Apples and Apple iPhone with space, without space, everything has been converted into Apple, Samsung. The spellings themselves are all completely right. And it is also done this complete count for us after having cleaned them up into one single format as such. So especially when you're trying to deal with a lot of text data that has these typical kind of issues, or you would want all of them to be normalized and converted or standardized into any other specific format that you desire, just put in those details into your prompt, and any of those generative AI tools should be able to do that for you. This is, I would say, probably a much more bigger, more, I'd say, reflects probably the sort of work, especially people who are into very serious and uh, detailed data analysis might be carrying out. So this is university admissions data that I found probably on Kaggle, that in fact captures huge amounts of information about enrollment rates and then SAT scores. I'll also be opening up the data set. So here, let's try doing probably much more deeper and detailed data analysis on top of this data, right? We'll also try and build some visuals on top of that. And yeah, before we do that, once again, let's take a look at this data set itself. So this is obviously, a very huge, massive data set with respect to admissions in 4-year, 5-year, and 6-year programs across all universities within the US. How many were enrolled, what is like the percentage of enrollments, their SAT scores, criterias, a lot of financial indicators also in terms of whether or not financial aid was given and how much, right? Details about the programs themselves. So this is the data set that I'll be using. Okay, so now let's get back to ChatGPT. Again, I have, maybe not this exact same file, but to a certain extent with such certain smaller files, try doing a lot of this on my free variant of ChatGPT. It does work pretty well, but then much larger data sets like these and, more powerful or advanced level of data analysis, I would definitely suggest to be going with the paid version. One other advantage that you get when you make use of the paid version is that, at the back end, you can also, since if you are on a paid version, you also have access to developer level or API keys. You can also integrate them with Python codes, connect them up through your Google Colab notebooks, and be able to do a more powerful coding sort of approach. Okay, so now let's put in our admissions data here and then start out, doing a series of prompts. I'm going to start out with, again, something pretty simple and basic. Give me the acceptance rate. And from this, we can kind of go ahead and start building up our queries themselves. One other thing, that you can probably experiment. There could be times where the data set itself is extremely complex, and especially if we are more, that beginning level of data analysis, we might not even be very aware of the sort of question we would want to ask, what sort of queries to put in, or what sort of visuals, let us say, make sense. Is it better to be able to visualize this as a scatter plot versus a bubble chart? So you can put in those sort of requests also into the tools themselves. So let's just like look at this data, and now can you tell me, if this is what I want to examine, what sort of visual would make the most sense? So you could ask it for help in terms of generating the queries themselves too. All right, so this is what it's using to calculate the admissions, and then it's actually done that pretty fast. A very huge data set, which for us manually might take quite a lot of time. Then it is and here's a list of universities, and it's also giving us a download link where it has calculated those university acceptance rates. Let me just go ahead and ask for something more basic before we do some more additional work on top of this. This is something that probably, again, a lot of us start with. Let's say you're loading your data into a data frame, and then we start out with those basic data frame level statistics. So can you give me, let's say, simple statistics about because it's a large one, I'm kind of limiting it to just 10 columns. And while it is doing that, let me put in my next query too. So, summary statistics for the key columns, again, extremely quick in terms of the count, means, medians, the standard deviation across each of those. Also, because it's able to do advanced data analysis extremely quickly, even for us to manually figure out which features were important, probably through some sort of rank importance kind of a feature that we would run, it's able to do that automatically. So based on, let's say, I go ahead and ask, based on acceptance rates, can you show me top 5 universities with highest and lowest rates? So I'm building a query on top of one of the previous responses. Okay. Again, this is where probably we were saying a little earlier, excuse me, about, whether or not the output itself is correct. This is definitely a place where, your own previous experience and your own previous expertise in terms of even being able to make sense of the output. Is this really correct? Is there some scope of probably some sort of hallucination coming in? And being able to do some sort of cross-checking in place is where, our intelligence itself would play a role. So we have some with very low, and yeah, this shows 0. This could either be an error, or it could be that, data about this particular university wasn't entered correctly. And then probably, the other lowest ones, with, as in, universities with extremely low acceptance rates, that kind of matches what we already are aware of. Okay. In terms of visuals, let's say, can you build me, uh, let's say, horizontal bar chart? Least acceptance rates limit to 10. It's almost entirely, what sort of data do you need and what sort of prompts that we put in. Okay, I think, I have probably around 6 to 7 minutes. So let's move on to another, probably a little more complex example. Um, right. You can, in fact, build on top of that query and ask for um, changes to the visuals themselves, change the color coding, or also show me percentage values on top of the chart. So you'd be able to do all that. And especially with respect to these sort of simple visualizations, I find output from ChatGPT to be the best. Okay. You can also ask the tool itself to be able to give you, you know, enhancements to the prompts themselves. Let's now go ahead and probably, try out one sample with Grok. Recently, especially the Grok 3 beta, which is still in that free tier mode for almost everybody, I do notice it giving me extremely good quality results, both with respect to data analysis, as well as more advanced coding sort of problems, just the free account. So I was working with the air quality data set, which I found from the US data website. And then again, putting in the prompt itself. Do you want summary statistics? Do you want to carry out some sort of temporal trend analysis? Do you want to do outlier detection? Do you want to do, let's say, forecasting? Depends on, again, how detailed and how clear your prompt is. But then the tools are able to carry out all of that and do it, at a very, very fast pace. So let's just go to Grok here for a minute. First putting in the web, the data set itself. And again, probably again, maybe something that a lot of you are already aware, but then if you do want access to a lot of well curated data sets, you could use, any of these um, government websites. And okay, the first one was, we were looking for air quality. So this was the source of this particular data set. And some of the other data sets being used in the exercises, majority of them are coming from Kaggle. So you just need to have your own account, and whether it is the World Happiness Report, or the data set, the hotel reviews data set I'll be using in the next exercise, I've pulled both of them from Kaggle, in fact. Okay, so let's go back to Grok here, uploading my data set, just air quality. And here we are looking for, like I said, slightly more advanced use cases where we are um, asking for either trend analysis or outlier or anomaly detection. Okay, so putting in the prompt, calculate the average NO2 levels. This was also a very detailed air quality data set with respect to a lot of, the various different kinds of pollutants that are present across a much longer time period, but with respect to, a few districts within the New York area. And again, the good thing is it also shows you the entire reasoning that is being followed in terms of the data analysis itself. And going through the response should in fact give you a very clear idea of, is this exactly how you would be approaching this particular problem, and is this the kind of analysis that you are interested in. So it says, calculating the average for each year. We do have data across some 12 to 15 years within that data set, month wise, and then it is calculating yearly averages. And it's also present across 2 seasons, summer and winter. And then it is doing, yearly averages per each year of data that is available from within the data set. And then, the overall trend itself, it says there is a general decline in the levels. And in terms of seasonal averages, which we asked for one specific reason, it is extracting that data itself. So once again, it depends on what sort of analysis are you interested in and how effectively and detailed do you put your prompt in. Let me move to the sentiment analysis example. And for this, I'm using DeepSeek. Again, maybe, just with respect to DeepSeek, probably it is a little more controversial. There are a lot of places where usage of DeepSeek has been banned, especially all federal institutions. And I'm aware of probably, a lot of the much larger software organizations also, which are not allowing DeepSeek to be used from a professional perspective. So always be mindful of that, before you go ahead and try some of these, whether or not usage of the tools themselves is allowed. So I've put in a hotel reviews data set, and then I'm asking it, to do some simple sentiment analysis. Now this data set almost exclusively has data in textual form. One other really good thing, that I especially like about DeepSeek is this is a small message, towards the top. I'm not sure if this is really visible where I have my mouse right now. It says length limit reached, and DeepSeek can only read the first 26%. So this is a file that does have, hotel reviews, very, very large file, which I already kind of created or undersampled it, but still it's pretty large for the free versions. A lot of the other tools, what I've noticed is, they don't even take in the data set. If you tried this exact same thing through Claude, let's say from Anthropic, it would say you've exceeded the limit. It won't even let you enter the data itself. But then DeepSeek, whatever amount of data, the top 26 that it was able to read, which is the first 500 rows, there are roughly around, some 17 or 1800 odd rows in this data set. So just with that small portion, it was still able to carry out that sentiment analysis, being able to give me what the positive aspects were, which had been rated on a scale of 4 or 5, location, staff. Majority of the negative sentiments are being expressed with respect to either service issue or mostly money, value concerns, and maintenance or amenities. And neutral. Okay. In terms of the patterns itself, what sort of terms was it looking for when it was doing the whole breakdown into the positive, negative, and the neutral ones? And then what sort of insights is it able to generate for us based on the recommendations themselves? Whether it is, so, the next level of insights, which probably for us, to be able to do this sentiment analysis, let's say if I have to start building Python code, it will obviously take quite a lot of time, being able to do a lot of those initial NLP steps, tokenization, embeddings, maybe using, either a ML approach or maybe one of those LLM models, build that, get out the analysis, and then do insights on top of that. It would be a very long, detailed kind of a program we need to build. But now, even to the level of figuring out aspects and then being able to generate insights based on top of that, the tool is able to do that probably, in a few seconds, in fact. Let me just put in one additional query. Can you identify, okay, the top 5 amenities mentioned frequently in the negative reviews? So maybe, I'm looking for areas of improvement. So anybody who has access to social media data, like just do some sort of web scraping, pull in the reviews, and then being able to do this sort of very quick and dirty analysis can actually give you good clues or insights into, which areas require a lot of attention, immediate attention. So in terms of the negative, again, we asked it to do or pull out aspects. Aspect level analysis, obviously much more detailed, will require a lot more time if we have to manually build a program to be able to do that. So these are top areas, which show up most frequently. Parking issues, where there are either fees or no parking options. And then a lot of negative reviews where Wi-Fi probably isn't good quality or not fast enough, air conditioning, bathroom quality, and comfort of the beds. So, very quick areas for us to focus on in terms of where improvements can probably happen. Okay, let me go finish up one final exercise. Just going to go back to the slides here. All right, so we've done the DeepSeek one. The final example that I want to stop with is maybe a little work on top of the World Happiness Report. We've seen a little pre-processing. We've seen some basic and some more advanced analysis and some sort of visualizations that we could do. Probably the final stages where you would want to go ahead and use all of that data and the output of your analysis and be able to tell a very compelling story, or exactly what does this analysis in fact point to. So you can put in those kind of prompts as well in terms of helping you build really good compelling storylines as such. So that's the final example we'll try. And yeah, before I go there, probably this is my last slide for the session. These are exclusive AI-based data analysis tools, but then the free tier or the trial versions are pretty limited. But those of you who are probably into that job on a much more regular basis and wouldn't mind going for the paid options, these 3 tools you should definitely try out: Julius AI and Mylens. So whether it is being able to help with data cleaning or pre-processing, or whether it is doing correlation analysis, trend analysis, or being able to do forecasting, a lot of those tools are doing a wonderful job at handling much more larger data sets and being able to do all those tasks for you. Okay, so this is my final data, which is the World Health Report of last year, which again I pulled in from Kaggle. And my final prompt. Okay, let me just say this. Analyze this data. Can you present your findings? Compelling storytelling format. Again, probably it's kind of a little vague. We just said storytelling format, but you can once again make it like a lot more precise in terms of exactly what you'd want to see in terms of that story. So it analyzed the report. There were some 11 columns which were kind of ranked around some, I'd say, 140 plus countries. What is their GDP, so availability of social support, health life expectancy. These were the top 3, in fact, criterias. And it's giving me this whole, okay, so it said pursuit of happiness, insights. This has always been the front runner, Finland, with the highest score. What exactly makes them so happy? Anatomy of happiness. This is the key insight. Countries that enjoy high levels of income, but not necessarily the highest. A very strong social support system is what matters the most. Good health systems also like play that or the second most important feature. Countries which have reported very less happiness quotients, low income, not very reliable support systems, and very high levels of corruption as well. Okay, surprising standouts. Costa Rica, although not probably wealthy on that same scale, but strong social cohesion, hence always ranks higher. So it's also figuring out a few outliers and then very surprising insights that are probably not in line with the rest of the data itself and the overall takeaway. Again, I could have probably rephrased it, and in fact I like the kind of breakup it has given me, but then you could once again mention specific headers or sections into which you want that overall storytelling to be broken up into as well. Okay, so I'm going to stop with the screen share so that we have a few minutes for any sort of questions. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Aparna. I have posted a series of links, the resources which we were talking about. and also the free coupon code for the e-learning ChatGPT bundle. So feel free to take those resources. You can copy from the chat and have that. Thank you, Aparna, for the wonderful session and detailed kind of thing, quite useful insights and very powerful as these tools are starting to get.